Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive. This time, we're heading to a place you might not have even thought about visiting: Mauritania.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, you gave me some amazing stuff to dig into: articles, travel blogs, even some deep historical dives. So get ready to see a country that's way more than just a desert.
More than just a desert, huh? I have to admit, when I hear Mauritania, I pretty much think sand. A lot of sand.
You and everyone else.
Yeah.
But it's seriously huge geographically, like the 28th largest country in the world.
Wow, 28th. I had no idea.
Yeah, but here's the thing. The population density is crazy low, only 5 people per square kilometer. Imagine that. Almost a whole sand dune to yourself. Okay, maybe not quite, but you get the picture.
I'm starting to get it. So it is mostly desert then.
Oh yeah, over 90% is the Sahara Desert. This massive expanse bordering Algeria, Mali, Senegal. But with this small population mainly clustered along the Atlantic coast.
That makes sense. And that harsh environment must have seriously shaped its history and culture, right?
Absolutely. And speaking of history, did you know Mauritania's name comes from an ancient Berber kingdom, also called Mauritania? Then you have centuries of Arab influence, followed by French colonization, and bam, independence in 1960. It's like a historical layer cake.
That's fascinating. So it's a real mix of influences.
Exactly. Arabic is the official language, but French is still widely spoken. And that blend of Arab, Berber, sub-Saharan African traditions, you see it woven throughout society.
Makes sense. Even in the people themselves, you've got the Bidhan, the Haratin, and other sub-Saharan groups. It's like this diverse cultural tapestry set against this stark landscape.
And that landscape really influences daily life. Islam is huge in Mauritania. Almost everyone practices Sunni Islam. It shapes everything: social customs, the legal system.
But within that, there are some practices that might surprise people, right? Like the men's market for widows and divorced women.
Oh, yeah. I know, it sounds strange to our ears, but think about the context. High divorce rates, no dating apps, and there's this belief that divorced women are actually more desirable. They're experienced, capable homemakers.
Interesting. I guess it challenges our Western assumptions about dating and marriage for sure. But then there's this contrasting view on women's bodies, the practice of force feeding.
Yeah, young girls encouraged to gain weight, even drinking liters of camel milk daily. It's crazy, right? Obesity is seen as the sign of beauty, prosperity.
It sounds harsh, but I guess in a harsh environment where survival is a struggle, being overweight was a sign of wealth, abundance.
Exactly. It goes deep culturally. But let's talk about something else complex: the economy. It's such a paradox.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How so?
On one hand, one of the poorest countries in the world. On the other hand, loaded with natural resources: iron ore, fish, copper, and now potentially huge natural gas reserves.
Wow, that's the definition of a paradox. It makes you think about that whole resource curse thing, where countries with tons of natural resources, they often struggle to actually translate that wealth into prosperity for everyone.
Right. Is it just lack of resources, or is it deeper? Corruption, political instability. What's stopping Mauritania from reaching its full potential?
Big questions. But for the average person, daily life is still about traditional stuff like animal husbandry, fishing.
Yeah, that means lots of meat, dates, peanuts in the traditional diet. And did you read about their love for super sweet tea? Multiple times a day.
It's like their coffee break, but way sweeter. I loved the detail about, even in this remote place, donkey carts in small towns, but then these intricate designs on their banknotes. Ships, camels, verses from the Quran.
It's those little things that remind you there's so much more to Mauritania than just the desert image.
Speaking of surprising things, did you read about the gold rush happening there?
Oh, yeah. Everyone trying to strike it rich, especially in this town, Chami. But the reality is far from glamorous.
Dangerous, too, right? Those miners working in those deep, often unstable tunnels for days sometimes.
All for the lure of quick wealth. Makes you wonder, right? In a place where traditional ways of life are still so strong.
It's a fascinating dynamic. This quest for a better life, even if it means incredible risk. And it's not just happening in isolation. It's impacting the whole country, the economy, even social structures.
It's like the whole country is shifting. But before we go there was this one thing that kind of stuck with me: the village of Dali-Cold.
Dali-Cold. Oh, right, where a big part of the population has congenital blindness. Heartbreaking.
And the belief that it's due to the will of God. It really makes you think about healthcare, cultural beliefs, and all the complex stuff happening in a place like Mauritania.
It does. It's a reminder that there are so many different realities out there.
It really makes you think about those challenges, yeah. But changing gears a bit, I was surprised by how important the railway is in Mauritania.
You mean the iron ore train?
That's the one. Apparently it's legendary, one of the longest trains in the world, just chugging across the Sahara, carrying iron ore from the mines to the coast.
It's this lifeline for their economy, yeah. And for, adventurous travelers, you can actually hitch a ride on one of those cargo cars.
Wow. Talk about off the beaten path.
Yeah.
Journeying through the Sahara Desert, seeing these massive landscapes. It It'd be incredible.
Definitely a unique experience. But even for those who prefer a more, traditional kind of trip, Mauritania has a lot to offer.
See, I have to admit, when I picture Mauritania, it's endless sand dunes. What else is there?
Oh, so much more than sand. Mauritania has this vibrant culture shaped by centuries of Arab and Berber traditions. You've got ancient mosques, bustling markets, nomadic encampments.
Nomadic encampments. Wow, that sounds amazing. Experiencing a way of life that's barely changed for generations.
Yeah, it captures the imagination, right? But it's important to remember that Mauritania also faces these serious challenges, like when it comes to development, poverty.
Right, we talked about that resource curse. It's so apparent here, all these natural resources, yet it's one of the poorest countries. Why?
It's complicated. There's corruption, political instability, lack of infrastructure, and obviously the desert environment creates a whole other set of problems.
But there's hope, right? Especially with those massive natural gas reserves they've discovered. Could that change everything?
It could, yeah. If the benefits are distributed fairly and sustainably, they have the potential to really transform the economy, improve lives.
It seems like the country is at this crossroads. Will they avoid the resource curse, create a better future? Or will they fall into those same traps?
It's a crucial moment for them. It'll be interesting to see what path they choose. But to really understand their future, we have to look at the past. And there's this dark chapter that still casts a shadow of slavery.
Right. It's a tough subject, but it's essential to understanding Mauritania today. They were one of the last countries to abolish slavery in 1981.
And even then, it didn't just disappear. The practice went underground, and it's still an issue today.
That's heartbreaking. It's not the kind of slavery we usually think of, right?
Right. It's more nuanced. It's tied to these deep-rooted social hierarchies, economic systems. Some groups, like the Haritan, have historically been exploited by the dominant Bidhan population.
So it's more about inherited servitude, exploitation, people born into this powerless position, very few ways to escape.
Exactly. It's this cycle of poverty, disenfranchisement, passed down through generations, tied to race, ethnicity, class. It's complex.
Definitely a sensitive and complex issue. What's being done to address it? Are there groups helping those trapped in these situations?
Yeah, there are local and international organizations working to combat slavery in Mauritania. They provide legal aid, support to victims, raise awareness, push for stronger laws.
Education has to be great, right? Breaking down those hierarchies, empowering those communities.
Absolutely. Education is fundamental. But you also need to address those economic roots, create opportunities for people to earn a decent living, break the cycle of poverty.
It sounds like a long road ahead. But it's encouraging to see people working towards a more just Mauritania.
It is. And even though slavery is this dark part of their history, it's important to remember all the positive things we've discovered. The resilience, the beauty, the culture.
It's a country of contradictions, yeah. But it's also full of potential. This deep dive has taken us on quite a ride.
It has. And it's left me wanting to learn even more.
Me too. There's so much more to explore.
Yeah.
But for now, let's switch gears. You mentioned Chinguetti. It sounds like a place straight out of a storybook. What's so special about it? We talked about markets, nomad camps.
No.
But Chinguetti, it's like something out of a storybook. What makes it so special?
Chinguetti is like stepping back in time. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, famous for its ancient libraries and manuscripts, some going all the way back to the 11th century.
Wow, the 11th century. That's incredible. So we're talking about centuries-old knowledge just sitting there on those pages.
Exactly. Religious texts, scientific treatises, poetry. It's amazing to think about the scholars and scribes who created and preserved all of that.
It must have been a major center of learning.
It was. Chinguetti was a crucial stop on those trans-Saharan trade routes, drawing scholars and pilgrims from across the Islamic world, a place where ideas were shared, knowledge passed down, cultures mixed.
It's a shame that today it's facing a new challenge: desertification.
Right. The Sahara is literally encroaching on this historical treasure.
It makes you think about the power of nature and the fragility of what we built. But it sounds like the people of Chinguetti are fighting back.
They are. They're restoring the libraries, digitizing those manuscripts, and raising awareness about protecting this legacy.
It's inspiring to see that kind of dedication, even against those odds. It says a lot about the human spirit, our connection to the past.
Absolutely. And it really underlines that idea of Mauritania as a land of contrasts, this ancient center of learning threatened by the very desert that defines the country.
It's like the past and present are constantly bumping up against each other in Mauritania. It's a country that really makes you rethink your assumptions, expands your view of the world.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes. The Sahara, the history, the culture, the people. Mauritania is just captivating.
It's a place that deserves to be on everyone's travel list, even if it's just through stories and pictures for now. Who knows? Maybe someday we'll be sipping that super sweet tea with nomads under the stars in Mauritania.
That would be an incredible experience. But for now, I hope this deep dive has sparked some curiosity and inspired you to learn more about Mauritania.
There's always more to discover, more to learn about this amazing world, so keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.